Does your caravan floor look like this? Rotted, water damage, want to make it look like this? Well, keep watching and we'll show you the process we use. And to be completely honest, I didn't know this is how they did it, so I've learned something doing this video as well. So if you can stay to the end of the video, I will be telling you how much this job cost and what kind of time scale it was to complete it. It's be interesting to know if you've seen any of this before, if you've seen this with your caravan and how much it cost for you to do it. But I'll give you a rough idea of what this costs and also tell you a little bit about how bad it can actually be. So before we have a look at the actual job and how Ian fixed it, I thought I'd talk about a bit of the background of how this actually happens. So what is it? Well, it's fairly obvious. It is water damage, as you can see by the pictures. It does take quite a while to happen. We tend to see this issue on vans, especially with the Swifts, around about 2014 down. So it kind of takes 10 years to get to this point that we're seeing here. And if you think about it, that's kind of the timescale that a fence would last without being treated. So it kind of has to be treated every now and again. And I'll tell you how to do that at the end of the video as well. I mentioned Swift there, but it can happen to any caravan that's got a wooden floor, and it tends to happen in the Baileys a little bit more than it does with the Swifts because of the Alitech construction. I've seen a Bailey caravan a year old and it's happening to that. Now I will put a link to the video on specifically on the Bailey water ingress at the end of this, so if you have an Alitech system then it'd be worth watching that, and like I said, I'll put a link to that on the end. Now depending on how long the water has been damaging the wood, that really depends on how bad the damage is. This one that you'll see isn't so bad because it's just the kind of lower section of the ply underneath the floor, but it can actually start rotting the kind of sidewalls as well. So sometimes if we take that panel off underneath and it started to go into the sidewalls, we have to replace that as well because that's what we attach to. So it's quite difficult to actually price a job up until we start taking the bits apart and we can see how bad it actually is. And like I said, it completely depends on how long the water has been attacking the wood and to the extent of the damage. So before we have a look at the actual job and how Ian fixed it, I thought I'd talk about a bit of the background of how this actually happens. Now a lot of people think that it's from towing in wet conditions on the road, but it's not, because I also see this quite often when the caravan is on a seasonal pitch. So I'll go to buy the caravan and it hasn't been towed, so it can't be that, and it still suffers from this. Now what I think is it's the actual construction of the caravan and how the rear panel is put on, which doesn't help the issue at all. Because what actually happens is the water will run down the exterior of the caravan and it will go underneath and it kind of cling to the bottom of the panel, and then when the floor is actually kind of inside the bottom of that panel, it then can hit the wood. And as soon as it hits the wood, obviously wood transports water, that's what it does. So the water comes down, clings to the bottom of the panel that's tucked underneath, goes into the wood and then soaks it. And if it's been soaked for a long period of time, obviously it is just a matter of time of how long that the protector that they put on from the factory will last. And then once the wood starts to rot, and then it gets worse and worse, and then we end up with this situation. So like I said, stay to the end and I'll give you the cost implications of what this job is and how long it took. And I think the next thing to do would be to have a look at how we fix it. Sorry to interrupt this probably highly informative and entertaining video, but I'd like to speak about something that I've been working on. It's called My Ideal Caravan. I've been getting quite a few people messaging me and phoning me from all over the country asking my advice on caravan related issues. It ranges from people asking for a price on a caravan that they may have seen online, just a tip, it's overvalued, it pretty much always is, from technical advice to why a battery's gone flat or maybe they've found some water ingress. Now, the best thing to do to get my attention is to sign up to My Ideal Caravan. You will get a direct link to me with an email address, and also I'm going to put my phone number on there so you can WhatsApp me. Now, I have been in the industry 30 years, so the advice I give you will be tried and tested, and it will be non-biased as well. I haven't got an agenda, I'm not trying to sell you anything. I will look at it from your point of view, from a dealer's point of view or a manufacturer's point of view, and I will tell you exactly what I think. So even if you don't need the information on how to buy a caravan because you've already got one, I suspect there'll probably be something on there that you didn't know. There's also a download section where I'm going to be putting different manuals and fault codes that you can download to your computer, and you can use those for reference as well. So I won't take up any more of your time. Have a look at the link in the comments below, and I will probably put something on the video that you can click on now. But don't forget to watch the rest of this video, and then you can click it at the end. Sign up using the link below or the link on the screen. It could be the best £10 you've ever spent. Now, let's get back to the video. So there we have it, from rotten to good in about 7 minutes. The job took about probably 4 hours. This took a bit longer because I was messing around filming, but it was an average job really. It was rotten on the floor, underneath on the bottom ply, and as you saw in the photos there, one side was a little bit more damaged than the other, but it was okay. It started to go, but it was not bad enough that it needed replacing. So we didn't do that, and you could see the difference between the two kind of colours on the sides there. But sometimes if it gets up into the sidewalls, like I said, we have to replace that piece of wood as well, because that's what we screw to, and obviously if that's gone then you can't screw to it, so we sometimes have to replace that, and that's where it gets a little bit more expensive. So you're looking at probably 4 or 5 hours, you're looking at about a £750 job, something like that. Materials aren't much, it's a little bit of ply and a bit of sealant, so it's around about that kind of cost in the workshop. And that's kind of about an average really. Like I said, it goes up and it goes, sometimes we just have to do one side, obviously, and we don't normally have to do that stripping between the two. Actually, that's quite rare. On the job you saw, there was a little bit more tidying up to do, but I didn't bore you with that. So it would have been another coat of paint and just kind of making an edge to it so it looked all neat. And then obviously we had to put the corner steadies on as well. Now sometimes that can take an hour to get the corner steadies off if the nuts aren't any good. So again, it's very difficult to give you an actual proper price of what it's going to be. It completely depends on each individual caravan. But I would have said £750 to £1,000 would be a rough estimate of what it should cost to do that kind of job. You saw how it was done, and again, I didn't know that's how they did it. I thought that was quite clever. Rather than cutting a hole and then trying to fit the wood to it, you trim around the wood so you know it's going to be an exact fit. And it's very important to get it completely clean so there's no damaged wood left in there, basically because then you can get a nice clean flat surface to seal to, and also the wood will be flush. You don't want it sticking out because that's going to then give water kind of more places to get into. So it's going to be nice and flush, sealed around the edges, obviously sealed up to the bottom of the caravan, and then painted to give that extra protection. And again, it's worth keeping an eye on it in the future. Is in a couple of years give it another coat of Cupinol or wood preserver, and then it should last for a long time. I think I might be shaking about a little bit, it's a bit windy here today. So prevention, if you haven't got any issues at all and your caravan's getting to 6 or 7 or 8 years old, then it might be worth just having a look underneath the caravan and seeing if everything is okay. Again, like I said in the early part of the video, you would Cupinol a fence every few years or every 5 years, and it's exactly the same as the caravan underneath. It's just you don't think it's going to be a problem because, like I said, you don't tow that often in the rain. It doesn't get that wet that often, but because of the way the water works, because of the way the surface tension allows the water to kind of track along a flat surface, as soon as it touches that wood and as soon as that protector that the manufacturers put on there is kind of worn out, then it is going to soak up into the wood and it's going to start to rot. So I would say have a look at it, sand it down, give it a coat of Cupinol or wood preserver. It's generally in those areas, so you could go forward just a little bit past the corner steadies, and then maybe up the sides as well. With the Swifts and the Coachmans and the Eldises and stuff, you don't really see that go up the sides. It's the Baileys go up the side fairly regular because that trim that goes all the way along the edge of the Alitech kind of promotes that system of water transportation all the way along it. So we do see staining all the way along on the Bailey. So it wouldn't hurt to kind of sand that down and give that a coat as well. Now obviously it's great if you've got a ramp because it's dead easy, you can get up there and do it. If you haven't got a ramp, then obviously you're going to have to find your own way to do that, but it's worth persevering with because you saw what the damage was, and if you can prevent it just by a coat of Cupinol on a Sunday afternoon, then obviously that's going to be the much better way of doing things. Before we finish, another interjection. I put this video rendering and then went out to see what the guys were doing in the shed, and they were actually doing another job very similar to the one we're doing here, or exactly the same actually. And they said, we've done it a different way. They actually took the outriggers off on the end of the chassis so that they could put the joint underneath that outrigger. So when they put it back, you couldn't even see the joint. And I thought it was really neat, and I thought I'd show you it. Also, that front joint is actually in line with the factory joint that was there. So as far as you're concerned, you can't really see any difference apart from the paint. And I thought it was really neat, so I thought I'd put that in there. Also, you can see where they had to replace some of the internal bits of wood as well. The side bit of wood you can see there clearly has had to be replaced, and the rear section as well. That's because the damp had actually got into it too far and they had to replace it because there was nothing to screw to. So I just thought that would be an interesting thing to see. They're always evolving and finding better ways to do something, and this might be something that you'd think of. So there we have it. If you'd like to comment on the comments below, that would be fantastic. It would be interesting to know if anyone's had this problem and how much it cost and how you got over it, or if you do actually treat your caravan already. That would be a good thing to know as well, because I'm not sure if people are already doing it or whether this video could maybe kind of get you thinking about it and make sure it's a job that you do in the future. Also, like, subscribe and share the video. That would be fantastic, and I will see you on the next one.